First, the guest of honor over here. All right. Remember someone used to turn 70, you'd wheel the guest of honor into the party room, feed them soft food, talk extra loud and slow so they could hear? Dad, this party's for you. Remember Leslie, your daughter? For a gift, you'd get him a bow tie, a Snuggie, a cardigan. Not anymore. Wait till you see your gift, Dad. You're going to love it. I'm sorry, you guys can talk. I don't want to break It's funny. Hey, Dad, it's remarkable you can go 70 years without a single enemy outside of the softball field. And those driving behind you on a one-lane road. My father's a sports buff. I always marveled at the fact he could tell a random fact, like who the American League MVP was in 1952. Bobby Shantz. Bobby Shantz. Just don't ask him to remember more than 2 items on the Food Town list. Or where he left his checkbook. Hey, Dad, as the father of 5, what made you think it was acceptable to buy not 1, but at least 3 VW Beetles? You must have been trying to kill some of us. For the first 5 years of my life, I believe my father had an accent or a speech impediment, because every time he talked, he had clenched teeth. I actually thought my name was, "You two son of a bitch, just ruined my life." In the mid-'80s, my father came to believe that watching a frugal gourmet every day, buying cookbooks, and even wearing an apron made him an actual chef. That summer, with my mother working and my father manning the stove, we were fed a steady stream of spaghetti with fresh tomatoes, tacos, and frozen banquet chicken. That was 2 months straight, and somehow my mother was okay with this. As most of you know, my father's somewhat of an amateur photo and video buff. If you haven't seen his work, imagine an epileptic filming while jumping on a trampoline during an earthquake. The term, "it was all a blur," was coined after someone looked at pictures my father had taken. Growing up, our house was the neighborhood hangout, which is great until one of our friends asked for a snack. As a food shopper, my father avoided all other aisles except for the no-frills section in Pathmark. I know, you had 5 hungry kids, it was expensive. But if you've ever had a teenage friend that asked for Doritos, and you had to hand them a plain white bag with red and blue stripe on it, and this is a quote, it was called imitation-flavored nacho cheese tortilla chips. You'll feel my pain. Coca-Cola or Pepsi, vintage cola was just as good, and it was 20% cheaper. They do the same things now. Many people don't know this, my father actually popularized another term, terrorists. Whenever one of us would do or say something stupid, you can guarantee my father would be standing in the doorway, just staring at us. Then it would start in. Poison. Terrorists. This only incensed us further. Years later, Tony would be seen making a pipe bomb in the kitchen. He had an empty bottle of Centrum, gunpowder, and a wick. My father was laying on the couch after a rough day of counseling. A student probably lost a set of cufflinks and was upset. Adrian yelled in, "Dad, Tony's making a pipe bomb in the kitchen." My father's reaction, after years of throwing this terrorist label at us, "Tony, are you making a bomb?" Of course, Tony said, "No, Dad." And then Tony proceeded to blow up a local phone booth that night. I believe right around middle school that we learned about self-fulfilling prophecies. If my father isn't with my mother, you can guarantee he's umpiring a softball game. Generally, people ease into retirement. If they do find part-time work, it's usually something really low pressure, like Walmart greeter, grammar school crossing guard. Instead, my father chose to umpire competitive men's softball. Through this, he gets the opportunity to remain in a crouched position for hours at a time in the summer heat and have his life threatened on a weekly basis. Instead of trying to cut back on his umpiring schedule, he notoriously misses events or leaves them early. He's actually leaving tonight. He has a doubleheader. My father recently retired after 44 years in which he started off as a teacher and ended up as a guidance counselor. They say those who can't do, teach. Those who can't teach, teach gym. And those who can't teach gym, well, they counsel spoiled suburban white kids. He knew it was time to go when many of his former students started dying of old age. He was a little too loved by students and teachers alike. One day in the graffiti heyday of the 80s, my father was told a student had written something about him on the bathroom wall. He nervously went to take a look, only to find that it said, Mr. Coletta rules. Now, I've had teachers I've liked, thought were okay, but seriously, Mr. Coletta rules? If a student wrote that today, there'd be a detective investigating him. Not only were you loved, Dad, but you obviously loved your work. Regardless of where he was going, Food Town, Bloomfield, Ortley Beach, Washington, D.C., he always found a way to pass his school in Whippany like he's trying to sell the fact that he actually worked there. Mom, I know you cherish those Memorial School drive-bys. I knew all of his co-workers' names, like Harvey, Louise, Lois, Aaron, Pete Hawkins, because he would always give us an hour-by-hour rundown of his day each night at dinner. But for some reason, he always included Leroy, the African-American janitor with the big afro. I had the honor of meeting Leroy a few times, and he and my father couldn't be any more different. I now realize that including Leroy never added to the stories. My father just felt cool having a black friend. Your favorite day of the year was always career day. Once it was over, you immediately started talking about next year's plans and special guests. Your unnatural zeal for career day inspired me to become a fireman, a job that all but guaranteed me a spot at all upcoming career days. Year after year, I waited for my invitation, but unfortunately, a local fire inspector had locked up the spot. Just to clear it up, I never really cared about speaking to kids about firefighting. I just wanted to become friends with Leroy as well. Although Counselor bludgeons underachieving twin sons to death. I can clearly remember report card time, waiting for Mike the mailman like a ninja perched in the upstairs window, ready to pounce on the mail as soon as it hit the mailbox. We unsuccessfully tried erasing grades, photocopying our report cards with fake grades, even hiding our report cards for weeks at a time, but inevitably he would pressure us to hand them over. It became a ritual after every marking period where we reluctantly gave up our report cards. Without even looking at them, my father would pour himself a glass of Southern Comfort, go to the front porch swing, and then we'd watch his silhouette in the window, swinging, sipping, and just shaking his head back and forth for hours. Thinking back, you always kept your cool. I always thought you were really going to kill us sooner or later, but we generally just got the I'm disappointed in you talk. So please accept my apology 20 years later. At one point, Adrian, Tony, and I had a pretty good Sunday ritual going. We'd leave the house about 10:15 and head to 10:30 Mass. Of course, we never did make it to church. We'd get Slurpees, candy, probably a few other things that our adult sister over there introduced us to. We even got brazen after a while. We'd walk in with the Slurpees in our hands after Mass, and nobody ever questioned us. This charade went on for probably 18 months before it fell apart. One Sunday, we made the fatal mistake of driving past a field that my father was umpiring at. Suddenly, the man that couldn't tell a ball from a strike at 2 feet out was now able to positively ID an 85 Mazda traveling 50 miles an hour from 200 yards away. We came back to the house, naturally refreshed from our Slurpees and candy, and then he nonchalantly began the interrogation. How was church? What was the homily about? Did you get there with no problem? Then he dropped a hammer. How could you have possibly been in church when I saw you traveling northbound on JFK Parkway at 10:45 a.m.? He knew. Defeated, we reluctantly attended Mass the next Sunday and reflected on our sins before resuming our Slurpee and candy ritual for the next few years. Dad, you apparently didn't notice that we kept your umpiring schedule on my bedroom wall after we got caught. I'm almost done. I didn't appreciate this till I had kids of my own, but Dad, you taught me the indispensable phrase, "We'll see." This started as far back as I can remember, and you used it whether it was, "Dad, can I borrow a quarter?" or "Dad, I fell, I have a bone protruding from my arm. Can you take me to the emergency room?" The answer was always the same, "We'll see." I hated "we'll see" more than anything, but as my kids will attest, I've officially adopted that as my go-to question of anything, my answer to every question. I can go on all night, but I'll save some for your 80th party. But, I hope you're having a great time surrounded by your loved ones and Alex. You deserve it. For your life, you've truly been a model son, brother, teacher, parent, best friend, grandparent, and to me, a neighbor. The greatest compliment anyone can give me is that I remind them of you. Happy 70th birthday, many more. We all love you.
Cheers.
You gonna get that published?
It was tough. It was hard to get through.
I would like